How do we make ourselves feel comfortable enough to talk about the thing, to acknowledge that the thing is not working?
Oh, I think modeling, getting around people who are talking about it, like listening to this podcast. I'm sure some of the things that I'm saying are uncomfortable for some folks to hear, but giving yourself opportunities to be exposed to what would it be to have some more conversations or to hear people talk about sexuality, then do some self-soothing, right? Take some deep breaths, move around. Like, okay, that's enough now. I'm going to pause this and come back to it.
Welcome to My Therapist is Out. Each episode, we talk with a therapist from Open Space Therapy Collective or LGBT community members about mental health and building community. This week, your host is OSTC's Clinical Director, Kristen Crowe. Kristen is a licensed professional clinical counselor, board-certified dance movement therapist, certified sex therapist, and works somatically with adults and partners to help heal the mind-body connection so you can feel more grounded and vibrant every day. Our guest this week is therapist Anna Mayer. Anna is a queer somatic sex therapist and relationship counselor based in Boulder, Colorado. She uses embodiment, humor, and liberatory mindset and practical tools to empower anyone who feels cut off from their pleasure and passion.
As we dive into today's topic, please keep in mind that this is a mental health podcast. We will talk about sensitive and difficult issues that are not appropriate for all audiences. Please take care while listening. All right. Hi. Welcome back to My Therapist is Out. I am Kristen. I'm the clinical director here at Open Space Therapy Collective, and my pronouns are they, them. And I'm here with Anna Mayer, who is a queer sex and relationship therapist. How are you doing, Anna?
I'm good. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here. Anna and I are both dance therapists, and we've known each other for a while, and I'm excited to have this conversation in front of a lot of people, because we normally have this just the two of us.
Yep.
So we are coming to the end of our Queer Hearts Healthy Starts Breaking Toxic Relationship Patterns series here. And if you are just joining us and want some more information, episode 40 that we have with Tara and Renee, how to have healthy open relationships, and an older episode 34 with Renee and I, why do you need a poly-friendly therapist? We're going to kind of continue the conversation, dive a little bit deeper about how does the experience of discovering your queerness help prime us for a more in-depth exploration of what fun and pleasure looks like in queer relationships. How's that sound, Anna?
That sounds great. Yeah.
Anna, she, her, is a queer somatic sex therapist and relationship counselor who is in Boulder, Colorado. She uses embodiment, humor, a liberatory mindset, and practical tools to empower anyone who feels cut off from their pleasure and passion. She especially loves working with queer folks, recovering people pleasers, couples, and polycules. At its core, her work centers around helping people connect more deeply to themselves, body, mind, heart, and spirit, and move through anything that is keeping them from expressing their genuine desires and embodying their most vibrant life.
Mm-hmm.
So, Anna, how did you find yourself here?
Yeah, how did I find myself here? I've always been kind of passionate about relationships and sexuality and the body. I've been a dancer for a long time. I came out as queer in high school. I got interested in sex ed at an early age. I mean, early 20s. And somehow through my path, I've found myself combining all of those things. And I love it.
I think we share a lot of love around those things, and I'm really happy to be able to chat with you more about this stuff. So can we talk a little bit more about like framework or definition of what we're actually going to be talking about?
Yeah. So I believe our title is something along the lines of how queering our relationships helps us find more pleasure. And I think maybe we could talk about what queering our relationships even means, right? We might have different definitions. Other people might have different definitions. I think about it as really deeply, first of all, connecting to ourselves, which isn't as easy as it sounds.
For sure.
And from that place, and really questioning, what are the heteronormative, cisnormative, mononormative, like what are all the things? What are the gender norms? What is it that we're told our relationship should look like? And queering is questioning that and connecting to ourselves in such a way that gives us access to, what does it really mean for me? What does that look like? How do I embody that? How do I live it out into the world? Yeah, I don't know. Would you add anything, or do you have a different way of thinking about queering as a verb?
No, I think probably, but I feel like that fits a pretty good basis of what I like to look at, especially when we're talking about relationships, right? Like we've already done all of this exploration about like, okay, I don't fit into this box. I don't fit into this other box. So I want to express my gender or my sexuality differently. And what does that look like? And so our relationships could follow a similar exploration, right? Like just because society tells us it should look one way doesn't mean we have to. And so how do you break down those stories that we get told and we internalize? The other intersectionalities and marginalizations that go along with that.
You make me think of something, which is we internalize those stories to a point where we might not even know that they're stories. It's like, when did I get told that fill in the blank, right? That this is how people do a relationship or what it should look like. When did I get told that sex should include certain activities or end in a certain way? Or I don't know, it just sort of got in there. And so identifying those can help a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I also think about how much like most of us are not told about sex in any way, shape, or form other than you're supposed to wait until you're in love between man and woman and whatever. And then anything else that at least that I was internalizing before was from like mainstream media kinds of things. Like, this is what it looks like in a Hallmark movie. And you're like, that looks odd, but okay.
I'm not sure about that.
I have questions.
Yeah,
exactly.
I have questions about that.
So
yeah,
sometimes identifying those feels harder.
Mm-hmm. And so I've been doing sexuality and relationship counseling for almost 10 years. And of course, I work with queer folks. I work with people who would identify as straight. And I still bring this concept of queering your relationship and your sexuality in. Whether or not I tell people I do that is a different story.
Sure.
But, just helping folks say, okay, what did you learn? Was it the Hallmark movie? Was it church? Was it your friends? Was it the Budweiser ad? Where did you learn this stuff? And then, because as a somatic therapist, as a dance movement therapist, I believe that the body is one of our best sources for present moment information about what feels safe, what feels pleasurable, what feels scary, bridging the messages with how we're showing up, how it feels to live inside those stories, and does it fit? Mm-hmm. As queer folks, for those in the audience who do identify as queer, I think that process of identifying that way gives us a really unique edge in saying, oh, I've already done some of that work to say, oof, what I was told about how this was supposed to go doesn't fit for me. So already living some of that difference and starting to figure out what could feel more authentic and true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I think even just acknowledging that even though we've done a lot of this work internally, has our partner acknowledge the same things showing up for them, or do they feel like, okay, well, I've done this in my own identity, but how it shows up in relationship, like is that a thing that we're cognizant of yet?
I think it takes time. There's so many layers. I thought I'd done all the work at 23. I was like, I got it.
Yeah.
No.
And then you're like, oh.
No.
How do we see folks in our office as showing up with something like this? Like, what are some, just to normalize it for some folks who might be listening who have no idea what we're talking about?
Well, the easiest, most straightforward example is when people come in following what I would call a script for their relationship or their sexual dynamic that feels dissatisfying. All right, that's a very general way of saying it, but it's basically like, I feel like I'm supposed to show up in a certain way. I'm supposed to enjoy certain things. And this can take a lot of different forms. Essentially, it's the process of saying, ooh, why isn't this working? It should be, quote unquote, should be working because this is the script. This is sort of the approved script. And, you know, the easiest example of that, I think, does come with folks who have done no examination. Mm-hmm. So if I see folks who are just in a very rigid set of gender roles or have a very, what I would call like a very classic sexual script, this one person, maybe a more masc presenting or maybe cis man person, initiates, and then it's like the round the bases thing. There's going to be some kissing, there's going to be some touching, then there's penetrative sex of some form, an orgasm, maybe one person, maybe both, and then that's it. That's the script. And I'm saying that not because it's a bad script. It works for some people really well, but it's a script, and so therefore it's limited. Mm-hmm. And typically I'll see people come in some form of, that's not working for me. If you take it into an example of, say, a queer couple, they might come in and say, hey, I feel like I should enjoy a certain set of activities because I'm masc presenting, or because I am the femme, or I feel like I should act in a certain way, otherwise people will think I'm not masculine enough or feminine enough, or like those types of things.
Those shoulds and supposed tos are big indicators. Those scripts, and I also think that, like, well, why do you think that? Sometimes like the opening question, and if you're like, I have no idea, I'm like, okay, then there's the place to start. How do we start deconstructing those things? Where do you start?
Where do I start?
Oh, it's a simple question, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so simple. It depends. It depends. I mean, I think that the folks I work with start it before they come to see me, because they're noticing that something's not feeling right. You know, it could be somebody who's been in a particular sexual pattern for a long time and has just checked out, and their partner is upset. Or folks who learned a certain way to be in relationship and then it's not sustainable, and they're having a lot of conflict. So I think the noticing that there's a dissonance is that first step. And so then by the time I enter the room with them, it starts to be identifying what's the issue, and then where does it feel off? And I think that's the embodied layer again. When this thing is happening, how does it actually feel? Do you feel numbed out? Do you feel like your skin is crawling? Are you just mad at your partner? Do you feel guilty for not being fill in the blank, whatever you should be or are supposed to be? Are you scared that they're going to leave because you're not fulfilling the script? right? So noticing what it's actually like, and then, identifying some of the stories, making those unconscious stories really clear. I'm afraid that if I don't like strapping it on for my femme partner, she's going to leave me for someone who's more into that, or right. And that's just a very, very specific example, but like we would get underneath, well, what about being masculine? What about being in a, God, and this is, I think, where part of the marginalization starts to come in too, because one thing I notice with, I don't know if you've experienced this too, Kristen, but sometimes there's more of a scarcity or a preciousness to the relationships that we do find.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, here's this one person who thinks that my way of presenting in the world or being that matches, and I got to hold on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there is something about like, even within the scripts, even though they might feel uncomfortable or not fulfilling, like there is some safety and like being like, oh, there's this thing that I can follow. And this person helps me stay within the thing.
Yeah.
Even though I don't really like the thing, whatever the thing is.
But I like it enough because it's, right, there's security there.
Yes.
And there's a history of connection that comes from whatever that thing is.
Mm-hmm. Even if we're interested in all of these scripts or like that feels safe, like the overall sex negativity that we have in our culture in general, how do we make ourselves feel comfortable enough to talk about the thing, to acknowledge that the thing is not working?
Oh. I think modeling, like getting around people who are talking about it, like listening to this podcast. I'm sure some of the things that I'm saying are uncomfortable for some folks to hear, but giving yourself opportunities to be exposed to nothing that's way beyond the edge. We're not talking about unsafe. We're just talking about uncomfortable. Like, ooh, okay. What would it be to have some more conversations or to hear people talk about sexuality? Then do some self-soothing, right? Take some deep breaths, move around. Like, okay, that's enough now. I'm going to pause this and come back to it because I need to take a walk. I think that's one way we expand our capacity when over and over and over the culture has told us this is a not okay topic. This is a dangerous thing to talk about, to think about, to engage with, especially critically, but be it all.
Hey, Renee popping in just for a minute to say thank you for listening. We really hope you are enjoying the conversation today. Any chance you have to rate, review, subscribe, and share with a friend makes a huge impact, and we greatly appreciate it. If you have extra bandwidth and want to support the show even further, you can go to mytherapistisout.com and click the donate button. Any donations from $5 a month to a one-time donation makes a huge difference for us. We're a little self-published podcast, so any extra dollar helps. Again, go to mytherapistisout.com and hit donate. Now back to the show.
Definitely. I know that something that we talk about a lot in general is embodied consent.
Yes.
And that feels like a good time in this conversation to talk about that, because how do we know when thing is just uncomfortable versus like past our capacity at the moment?
Thank you for bringing that in. So embodied consent, first quick definition, maybe you've talked about it before. The way I talk about it is really about a moment-to-moment awareness of what a yes, a no, and a maybe feel like in your body, which also includes your thoughts, right? But it's sort of the difference between, I think of it as a bit of a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the hell yeah, enthusiastic capital Y yes on one end, hard no on the other, but then there's a lot of room in between.
Yes.
A lot of room in between that is like, well, yeah, okay, yeah, I could get into that maybe, or I'm not sure. I need some more information, or I should want that. Probably. Maybe. And so, when we talk about the difference between being, and by the way, for people who are just listening the whole time, just now I was gesturing a little spectrum from left to right.
Because we're dance therapists.
Because I will talk with my hands. When we're talking about the difference between uncomfortable and unsafe, I don't know. I think it's very personal, and it is about self-knowledge, but it would be somewhere around, where does that, like, okay, yeah, I could be maybe interested in this if it went slower, if I took a break and came back, or to like, I should do this, but I'm freezing up. I think our bodies are a good barometer here. So again, the embodied consent of what does it actually feel like to reach a place where you're not breathing as much. Maybe there's more tension in your body. We all have different responses to unsafety. For some people, it might be freezing. For other people, it might be plastering on a smile, being like, everything's fine. This conversation is great. For me, it's like, no, this isn't actually. And can we slow it down and take a breath, move around, get some water, maybe just stop.
Yeah, I definitely talk about it in a super similar way. And I usually bring in the we're not going to use anything sexual as the basis for how we look at this, because already talking about sex is super uncomfortable. So it might be like, okay, so if I offered you this flavor of ice cream, is that an absolute yes, or is that you disgusting?
Yeah.
And then how do we feel, and how do you know? It might be a much lesser response, but at the same time, can we at least tap into what that feels like somewhere in your body, and then can we hone in and find that spot again for other uncomfortable things in our ice cream.
Yes, I talk about food all the time with embodied consent, because exactly that. We want to get a taste for it, a taste of what no, I don't want Brussels sprouts, before we get to a place that's actually unsafe. By doing that, and this is where the pleasure part comes in, accessing, okay, well, if I know what a no feels like, it then starts to create more room to understand, well, what does a yes actually feel like? So if Tyler asked me to the prom junior high and I was like, yeah, okay. That's not a yes. And I'm giving that example because of, to our kind of initial point is that we being, I'm including myself in this, in the queer community, already have experience on some level of being presented with an option, feeling like we should, and then being like, but that really doesn't feel good to me. But if Amy asks me to Sadie Hawkins, I'm like, hell yeah, yes. Shout out Amy, right? Great time. So having those experiences, whether it's food or past life experiences to draw on, what did that actually feel like? And can we recognize it more in the moment when it comes to things that are a little edgier or unknown territory?
I mean, I feel clear on that, and hopefully that feels clear for other folks. So I guess I'm thinking now about exposing people to these kinds of ideas. How do we look at this from inhabiting queer spaces?
Yeah, once we understand what embodied consent is and what a yes or even okay, maybe, I might be interested in that, what that feels like, I think it's a great point. We actually need to know what the options are. Mm-hmm. It's like going to the grocery store and there's 3 different vegetables offered. That's, by the way, the kind of a limited script. You're like, well, I don't really want I don't really want Brussels sprouts. I don't know, but there's nothing else here. So getting into queer spaces, connecting with community, hearing people talk about it. I would even say finding examples. So queer porn. If we're just talking about sexuality, I want to say that a lot of this is also about relationship dynamics. It's not all about sex, but it's a little more concrete to talk about. Finding good, ethical, queer porn that's not produced from a mainstream source, that's actually featuring performers who identify as queer, who are engaging in the type of sex that they want to have, that they're directing it, right? So I could give some examples of some sources for that. So Cheeks with an X at the end, Crash Pad series, I believe is still active. That's Shine Louise Houston, I believe. Erica Lust is a director who includes queer folks. Make Love, Not Porn is not specifically queer, but it's folks who are in real relationships producing their own videos. And that's a way to also see, what do people actually do? And granted, they're still performing, so all of this is taken with a grain of salt, but you get to watch and see what feels like a yes, what feels interesting, what feels, no, I'm averse to that. I don't have any interest in that. And start to experiment with that as a little bit of a menu before having to answer, well, what do you like? What would feel good?
I don't know.
I don't know. And also searching for yes, no, maybe lists. And again, this is purely sexual right now, but there's some good resources online where people can read through options for things that they may or may not want to do and actually go through the embodied consent process to say, is that interesting? Do I just feel like I should like it? What is this actually like? Or if I were to make this one change about it, then I would be interested. And that's the creative part of embodied consent, and where we get to start to be agents of our own pleasure.
So what I'm hearing is there is no one right or wrong way to do the thing, and exploring all the nuances is really important.
Well said. Yes. And I know that we're saying that it's easy to say, but there is no right way or wrong way to do this. Whether it's sexuality, relationship dynamics, relationship structures, right? We get to question that and say, where is this not feeling authentic, or where does it feel off or bad or forced? And give that a little bit of curiosity where you can, where it feels safe enough.
Even when we're talking about things that, like, okay, so here's something that I should like, or here that I'm supposed to like, how do you also shift the narrative into, like, this thing might not be something that was ever approved of? So how do we start to explore things that, like, might feel more quote unquote dangerous, but maybe aren't?
Right. Like, if I, in my authentic exploration, find that I am really interested in something that somewhere along the way I was told that's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, because that creates a very mixed, or it can create a very mixed experience of, oh, this feels good, but yeah, I think in those instances, I would go back to saying, well, what are the mixed sensations, right? Do I feel simultaneously exhilarated and guilty? Do I feel soothed and worried all at the same time? And I know without examples, these can just feel abstract, but whatever the thing is that we are interested in, if it comes with that story of this isn't okay, there's gonna be a high likelihood of some kind of mixed sensation. So naming that, and I know that it can be scary to do this, but putting words to the story. Like, okay, here's a complicated one. Yeah, I'm going to go complicated.
Go.
So, cis lesbian couple. This is not a real client, just so you know. This is kind of a hypothetical, but a cis lesbian couple where they really like playing out traditional gender roles. And perhaps they find a lot of excitement in even going full like 1950s, like one puts on a little dress, the other one comes home. It's a bit of a power play or something, like that can feel really fun. But at the same time, someone might be like, wow, what's going on with me that I want to be in a 1950s housewife dress, like I'm a progressive, I'm a feminist, I'm queer. Is this okay? Right? Or their partner could be like, well, my partner wants me to boss her around and I don't know. Is that okay? I enjoy it too. And so it can be complex, but sort of naming what the conflict is. I feel so turned on by this, or it's exciting to me to play with or to subvert gender roles. And I feel conflicted because I don't want to perpetuate gender roles, right? So you kind of naming those things. It could also be a lot more straightforward. A cis man say, it's like, yep, I am gay, and finds himself a great boyfriend and loves their time together, but then also feels ashamed at times just for being gay. Right? I mean, that's just a very classic. I'm starting to name what that is, what stories come up. And I think, as we said before, there's a lot of layers that can get in the way. But putting words to it instead of just believing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'm going to come back to the body. So giving ourselves some support through movement, through community, through enjoying the pleasure that is there.
Yeah, I definitely think community is important. And even if you aren't talking about the things openly, because I know that that's something that not everybody's going to feel comfortable with off the bat, like there are still so many opportunities to even just witness something different. Even, I think we were talking about this before, but like going to a pride parade and just seeing all of the different options that are like just very out in the open and easy to observe, and like you can just be like, okay, I'm just here, and then you can work your way up to things that might be a little bit more intimidating, but even just to go there and just observe that there is a broader menu that you might not have known about.
100%. I think that's a great example, and you don't have to pay for porn to do it. You can just go to Pride.
Yep. I love Pride. Anyway.
Yeah.
I know we talk about this a lot. We talk about this every time we see one another, probably, I think. And what is actually giving you some hope around this? Like, do you see any trends or anything that feel like we're moving in the right direction as a society?
I can't speak to the society, but I do.
That's fair.
I do see a lot of people. I get to know them very well. And what I see from that gives me a lot of hope. Whether these are people who would identify as not queer at all, to people who are fully in their queer identities, perhaps multiply so, how they're showing up to their relationships with fresh eyes, how they're willing to take the risk to slow down and really listen to themselves. It is a risk. I talk about it all the time, of this self-attunement, meaning connecting with yourself long enough to feel what's actually happening, and then giving that some acknowledgement, giving it some compassion, maybe even listening and acting on it, people are doing that. People are taking that risk, and they're making changes in their relationship. They're being humble. They're listening to each other. I think this is something that, especially if people are finding themselves unsatisfied with how things have been going. And it doesn't mean things have to be bad. It just means that they could be better in terms of how the relationship feels, or the dynamic, or how much pleasure they're experiencing, whether it's in a sexual context or not. Because I probably should have said this earlier, pleasure is everywhere, all the time, right? It's about our senses. It's about whether I eat the Brussels sprouts or the artichoke or the ice cream, right? Like, I get to find pleasure in a lot of ways. People are doing that work because when they're separate from, like, I think there's a knowledge that there's more pleasure available, or more connection available, or more authentic relationship available. People are motivated to do that. I think that might be the most important part. And the rest is not easy, but there's a path, right? Of just listening to yourself, getting some options, seeing how they feel, taking care of your body along the way, and your heart.
I guess I also feel I got stuck on the asking about hope for the society and how this actually fits in. And then I was thinking about, well, like, if our true authentic selves are able to access and experience pleasure, then that's a form of activism in itself.
Absolutely.
And so, like, let's just put that sort of spin on it. Be like, this is important work for all the reasons.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm getting very passionate about this.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know that we have time to get into all of that, but I think we should maybe have a conversation around that too.
I will say on that, yes, that's very much part of how I think about it. And, pleasure is not frivolous, right? Especially for people in bodies who have been told you don't get to take up space in the way that works for you, or you don't get to live life in the way that you really want to. Multiple marginalization. All the ways that can look to do the things that we're actually talking about, and say, yeah, my consent matters, first of all. My pleasure matters. And I'm going to seek out spaces where that matters, including my relationship, including my community. That's powerful. I see that as a form of liberation, and it's part of why I do this work.
That feels like a really powerful thing to end on, and my brain is like, you probably should have started with that, but that's okay.
Slice that in at the beginning.
Fine. Yeah, I'll be fine. So if folks want to think about this some more, I think we probably gave folks a lot to think about, but what are some takeaway thoughts that they can ponder before maybe they take this to their own therapist?
Well, I would say you could start with thinking about what already feels good. And that could be sexual, it could be sensual, it could be emotional, it could be the kind of food you like. It could be an intellectual conversation. What feels good? And then maybe spend a little time just enjoying that. And by enjoying it, I don't just mean like, woo, this is fun, but letting yourself notice, okay, when I get under that really fuzzy blanket and feel the really unnaturally soft texture under my fingers, which I love and my wife hates, but I love it.
Really? Okay,
yeah,
anyway.
I know. When I'm feeling that source of pleasure, what happens? Do I feel it just in my fingers? Do I feel it somewhere else in my body? Does some part of me relax? Do I start to smile a little? What does it feel like? And if there's a mixed sensation, like we talked about earlier, like I also feel a little nervous, or I feel a little guilty as I engage with pleasure too, that's okay. That's actually really normal. And just pacing yourself and letting yourself enjoy that. And then the next bonus option you could do would be to get curious about something that doesn't feel as enjoyable that you do. And again, I'm talking more about the middle part of the spectrum of this is in the maybe zone. This is, okay, I'll do that. Not like, oh God, I should do that. Or you're still okay. You're just not enjoying it that much. Notice what that feels like and see if there's a request you could make or a change you could make that might make that feel a little bit better. I don't have an example that comes to mind, but, just seeing, first of all, I think practicing that just with yourself. Like if for some reason the fuzzy blanket, I'm just going to keep going with this example, had like crumbs in it or something. And I was like, oh, I want to be enjoying this, but it needs to be washed. Okay, well, maybe just from me to me, self-attune, I listen to that and go get a different blanket, put that one in the wash. It seems really simple, but when we're looking at it through the lens of really honoring where we're at and making that request and taking that action, it can be really powerful. And then we start practicing it in our relationships, maybe asking our partner for something a little bit different, or, hey, could you go a little slower there? Or could you use your nails? Or whatever it is that in that moment you think, I might be interested in that.
I love that. Good questions. I want to think about some of them on my own. And if folks want to keep in touch with you or follow along with what you are doing, how can they find you?
I have a website. It's annamayercounseling.com. I also have Instagram. It's every.body.loves.counseling. Everybody loves. You can go there. You can go to my website. You can reach out to me if you're in Colorado. I'm available for clients. If you're national or out of Colorado, I am offering a program coming up that's about reconnecting to desire, finding what authentically works for you in your relationship, especially if you and your partner might want different things. So bridging that gap. It's an inclusive, embodied, practical approach. And I'm currently taking waitlist interest. I don't know when this airs, but it's coming soon.
I'm so excited for this course. Thank you so much for taking some time with us. It's great to talk to you as always.
You too. Yeah, thank you for having me.
If everyone out there listening is interested in some more, we have our part 2 question and answer episode coming up. So please send us any questions that you might have to info@openspacetherapycollective.com. And if this episode was interesting for you, we invite you to share it with somebody who might need to hear this. Maybe it's your partner, maybe it's a friend. And then from here, we would like to just send you off with a queer moment of joy. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is CJ, and my pronouns are she, her. And a queer moment of joy is when you're out with friends and you spot other lesbians or queer people in the wild.
I'm Sam, he, him, and the queer moment of joy that I want to highlight is a few years ago when I came out to my partner, my wife, Emily, and she supported my bisexuality, which was really sweet. So I just want to shout outs to Em. But the other one that I want to celebrate was something that I'd waited my entire life to go do, and this was even before I came out, which was going to Further Confusion in San Jose, which is a furry convention. And that was the first time I think that I was sharing space with other, queer and all, different types of folks and genders there. But then they were also dressed up in costume, and I loved it. I was always a lurker online of the furry community. It was actually the first time that I might know that I had an inkling of some queerness in me. were the furries. So I want to shout out the furry moment of joy that I had at Further Confusion. And now I'm going to hopefully go to more events like it. Yay!
Thanks for joining us. If you're in California and looking for a therapist, visit our website at openspacetherapycollective.com and book a free intro call with one of our therapists. If you're enjoying My Therapist Is Out, please rate, review, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Do you know somebody who could use a little extra dose of queer community? Send them one of your favorite episodes of My Therapist Is Out and help our collective grow one listen at a time. My Therapist Is Out is an open space therapy collective podcast, and our podcast editing is done by Rachel Peltzer and Smash and Grab Studio. We'd love to hear from you about today's topic, so email us at info@openspacetherapycollective.com. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Open Space Therapy Collective. Thanks for listening.